What is up, everybody? Good morning. Can I say good morning? Nah, 2 minutes late. I can't say good morning anymore. It is Jover. Sorry I'm late. It was a very long weekend, and I'm not going to go into great detail about why exactly I'm late this morning because nobody wants to hear about that. But let's just say that it's been a it's been a difficult morning in certain senses. But I'm here. I'm here at last. We've got a million stories to get through. It's crazy. It is crazy how fast everything is cranking along right now. It reminds me of the last time it was like this was late 2020, early 2021. So for similar reasons, and it just I'm just jamming as many of these stories as I've got bookmarked in here as I possibly can. I've had to raise my standards for what constitutes a story because I just can't get through all of them. And we're gonna crush through as many of them as we possibly can today because I know that by the time I get to tomorrow, there's just gonna be so many more stories. Something's gonna happen while I'm doing the show here. I have a feeling we're gonna get some sort of interesting news break that drops. But now we're getting what used to be, I don't know, the type of news story you'd get every, 2 to 4 weeks. Now they're happening like every hour and a half. And yeah. What was Lenin's quote? I think he said that the thing about, I can never remember the exact quote, but it's like sometimes a year happens in a week, and sometimes weeks take years, or something along those lines. That's what's happening. That's what's happening now. So it's good to be here with all you guys. What's up, Bryce in the chat? He says, "You're now my daily news cycle." Well, that is a responsibility that I take seriously, and I don't know, like. It's not going to keep up like this forever. Like there's going to come a time when everything slows back down, and honestly, it would be good for us. It's fun. Like for someone in my my line of work here, this is great. You know, it's very good for business. The audience has grown significantly just in the last couple of weeks, and shout out to you guys. Welcome aboard to any new folks around. But like ultimately, this isn't good for us. We're basically running on like socially. We all did a gigantic line of coke, and we are freaking the fuck out right now. And we can't sustain that for a while. It's going to have to dial back down. Things are going to have to go back to normal. And ideally, that's what we want. Like things go back to normal and people get to just live their normal lives and make their normal babies and build their normal cities and create a normal future. That's the goal. But for now, things are not normal. So we're gonna keep talking about it. Shout out to Meta Prime in the chat. He says it's morning in the PMW. That is true. That is true. And I miss the PMW like I cannot describe right now. I don't want to live there. I remember what it was like living there. I don't want to live, or at least in Western Washington specifically. I don't want to live there. Eastern Washington's pretty nice, but I miss mountains. I miss mountains. I miss Pacific Northwest green. Like Texas is pretty green this year. We've had a lot more rain than usual, but Pacific Northwest green is just on a whole nother level, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have while I was there. What's up, Tyler James in the chat? Michael Robertson, Silver Pie, Duffhead in the chat. Man, we got the crew here. Melon, Taylor Brown. Good to see all of you guys. All right, so let's just launch into this. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you have not already. And if this is your first time watching or you haven't subscribed yet, then please subscribe to the channel. I think basically everything except for one story today. I've got an article in Politico, which is interesting. Politico's putting out some very interesting articles lately. Their voice has changed. I'm not saying Politico is our guys, but they're actually taking a more, focused, balanced look at things from our perspective, more than, we're talking grading on the curve of the establishment press, but it's interesting. So we've got one of those. Otherwise, everything else here is going to be from Twitter. We're going to talk about this coup that's happening because it obviously very much is a coup. We're going to talk about CrowdStrike. We're going to talk about neocons and the RNC because related to the coup, I don't think Kamala is going to be the candidate. I think I think there's going to be a major push to make. I should be clear about this. I think there's going to be a major push to make Kamala the candidate. I don't think she's just going to get kicked aside, but I think that there is another challenger who has not yet thrown their hat in the ring. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about, related to the neocons, the RNC, we're also going to talk about patronage. We're going to talk about Bukele and Trump firing shots at Bukele. I've got some stuff on that. And then we're going to round it off talking about Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance. And then that's when we're going to read the political piece about J.D. Vance and Tolkien. So, hope you guys enjoy the show here. Let's get it started. First of all, we got to have some laughs. We got to start ourselves off in the right frame of mind. So let's laugh.
Last adjustment. We got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear the sound of your own voice?
Yeah.
Oh, baby! Oh my God, Doctor, thank you so much. We're so excited. Thanksgiving's in 2 days, and I can call you on your cell phone now, baby, and you can talk to my dad about his head.
Whoa. Are you okay? Is that too loud?
No, not too loud. The boy that's annoying. You don't hear that? I have to hear it forever. Oh, there we go again. You know why this guy's smiling? Because he's probably dead, but he can't hear his wife's voice. Doc, please take it off. Help me, please.
Relax. This is a celebration. Trust me, from one married man to another, you'll get used to it.
I don't believe any word that came out of your mouth.
You'll get used to it. We love our wives, don't we? If you don't have one, you need to get one. It's definitely worth it. Another one here. I don't know who this is like a congressman or something, or some Republican politician somewhere just cooked this poor little guy.
Representative, will you commit to opposing a nationwide abortion ban?
Will you commit to putting some sunscreen on those legs? Man, I gotta wear welding goggles out here, they're so wide.
Oh, I love these good old boys. Just absolutely smoked the little twink. This is my type of politics. Okay. Then now here's very obviously one of our guys. This guy is a I don't know, bellwether. This is if you don't recognize that this guy is our guy, you are not our guy. It's just as simple as that. Tucker Carlson. The greatest thing we've ever seen. Watch this.
What is that? Gentlemen, you've lost control. This is the greatest day. Do you mind if I run for This is incredible, gentlemen. I stand in awe before this. This is a conventional tin of Zyn. This is the largest Zyn tin in the world. The volume of nicotine in here could save the world. There's enough nicotine in this container to alter the course of history.
That's how you negotiate a ceasefire.
100%. And just drop this in, and everyone's like, you know what? I'll calm down. What is?
I love Tucker so much. How much fun would it be to just be like traveling around hanging out with Tucker? Think about the types of guys. Like the type of people he's surrounding himself with is 100% our guys. When you're working with Tucker, looks like it's just white boy summer year round. I do also appreciate the fact, I noticed here, that that Tucker is a fellow subscriber to flip-flop nationalism. And I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you guys. Flip-flops are the optimal footwear for the casual lounging man. And Tucker subscribes to it as well. There was a period of time when I lived in Southern California that I think I probably wore flip-flops every single day for an entire year. Never wore shoes once. Having to wear shoes is a violation of my aristocratic principles. Look who it is.
Hey, I have some thoughts about this flip-flop thing.
I knew you were going to. That was perfect timing. It's like the gods were listening.
Yeah, I remember reading about some African dictator who he hated flip-flops. So much so that he had a policy where if you got caught wearing flip-flops, his goons would hold you at gunpoint while you ate them. And I fully endorse that policy.
Oh, well, it's good to see. He says black pilled. You've come out as an African supporter today. I appreciate that.
Wallowing in the depths of despair.
Buck says he doesn't think he owns flip flops. Are you and Buck? Have you finally landed on the same side?
Seems like it.
Duffhead
Smart
says.
Guy.
Okay, yeah. So I'm on Team Duffhead here. It's Duffhead and me against you and Buck. Duffhead says when you live at the beach, you always wear flops, and he said the Romano 725 says you aren't prepared for violence in flip flops. Duffhead said, yeah, but I am prepared for violence barefoot. That's right. If you're not prepared for violence in flip flops, that's a skill issue.
I'm a fan of barefoot nationalism or whatever we want to call it. People can be barefoot. That's great. I think there's something cool about that. But flip flops, the sound they make, the material, it's garbage. It's all garbage.
When I was in Italy, there's a mountain in northwestern Italy called Castelluzzo. I think it's like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 feet, something like that. It's not a huge mountain, but when I was there, I hiked all the way up to the top and then ran all the way back down in flip flops the whole time. If you can't hack it in flip flops, that's not a flip flops problem. That's a you problem.
I'll say, like kids are allowed flip flops. I suppose flip flops on the beach are okay. And then maybe in like a shower, like if you're at like a campground, you got to use the shower or something. That makes sense to me. Or like a porta potty or something. Yeah, I get that. But there should be like a defined line. Like maybe we could paint it bright neon green or something, where the end of the beach property meets civilized society. And if you cross that line with those fucking flip flops on, you're eating them.
I would actually be fine with that because then I would just stay on the beach all the time. I would just never leave. Just hang out there in my beach house. That's where that's the land of the aristocrats, and then all the plebs can live inland.
Would you like to know why I'm wallowing in despair?
Why are you wallowing in despair, Cooper?
Because I had to deal with DOT drug test stuff today. Oh, man. DMV, dude. The DMV. Can we just nuke them?
Actually, as a matter of fact, under Project 2025, we will be nuking all DMVs and launching all DMV employees into the sun.
And all DMV, we're gonna bomb Mexico with the DMV.
Yeah, we're gonna take the DMV ladies and just drop them on Mexico from like 100,000 feet up.
Be leaving craters.
Fat black lady hitting terminal velocity before she lands on some Mexican's hut.
The whole town goes supernova. The second reason I'm black-pilled is my wife has a flat tire. So the universe is conspiring against me today, where today I had a lot of energy this morning. I was like, oh, I have a whole lot of shit I got to get done. I want some projects I'm going to work on. Maybe go for a run, maybe hit the gym. And then it's just like, crashed. It's like one thing after another. Where, nope, I'm not going to get any of that done today. I'm going to be doing stupid shit.
Well, let's try to cheer you up with listening to our great Lord and King, the Don.
All right, God Emperor.
He has been in just absolutely unique form lately. He's got it back. You know, when the events of the past week happened, and then he gave his great speech at the RNC. I was on the old Glory Club with Pete Quinones, and we sat there and watched the whole thing. And it was like, okay, this is like a 95-minute speech. God, okay. All right. You know, the first 30 or 40 minutes was just like transcendent. And then it was just kind of like just an ordinary Trump speech. He had some great zingers. He had some good, it was good. And it's like his last speech was cut short, so we're going to let him go as long as possible. I don't care. Like if he would have gone for 3 hours, I would have watched the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
But I did notice that he's very muted, and it's kind of like, okay, so I wonder how long this more low energy Dawn is going to last. I think there's some great benefits to the low energy Dawn, but at the same time, and I think because a lot of the energy has been externalized from him now, and he can kind of be carried along by it. But at the same time, we want our energetic Dawn. That's when things are best, and he is right back to it. He had some banger clips coming out the other day. I picked my two favorites, or actually three favorites here, and we'll watch those. This first one's probably the best.
You know, I have to just interject. If you would turn off those cameras, because I don't want this. See the screen up there of me? That's very severe, that comb over. That's a severe sucker. What's with that one? It looks okay from the other side. But that is very severe. I apologize. Man, I looked up there. I said, whoa. Look at that. Wow. That's like a work of art. Only look at that one. Don't look. That one looks. You know,
Have you seen this clip yet?
Yes, I did, but I only caught like the second half of it, so I figured he was just making fun of someone else. It's interesting that he's being self-deprecating.
Right. He's being self-deprecating about his own appearance. That's the way to do it. Like, if you're insecure about something, you don't do the Ron DeSantis thing where you like try to hide it and you end up looking much worse. Just
Please
absolutely
clap.
lean right into it. Yeah, right. You notice here, even after he calls it out, he's like going out of his way to stand here for a little while, holding his head on that side. So he may be genuinely insecure about it. I don't know, but he wasn't like trying to hide it or anything like that.
Oh, hey, this is up in my neck of the woods.
Indeed, it was. Also, he went and did another rally.
Can you move the clip around to where he's facing the other way so we can check out his cool new ear piercing? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like it's still covered.
Yeah, a little bandage on top of it.
Yeah.
One other interesting thing I just noticed, we haven't really talked about this, which is a sign of the times. I think a few years ago, it probably would have been a story that the slogan for this campaign is the same as the slogan for the last one.
I've thought about that.
But what I would like to see, I don't remember this detail well enough, so maybe somebody can tell me or someone can go look and see. Did the last one have an exclamation point? This is Make America Great Again. But that's very good. Like, Make America Great Again, it's actually very appropriate because it calls back to 4 years ago. Make America Great Again like it was 4 years ago versus Make America Great Again like it was at some point in the past. Here's another one. So Trump talking to Kim Jong-un.
a good thing. You know, a lot of times the press would say he gets along with Kim Jong-un, North Korea. He has a lot of nuclear weapons. I got along with him great. You were never in danger with me as your president. It's a good thing to get along, not a bad thing. I used to tell him, why don't you do something else? All he wants to do is buy nuclear weapons and make them. I said, just relax, chill. You got enough. You got so much nuclear weapons, so much. I said, just relax. Let's go to a baseball game. I'll show you what a baseball. We'll go watch the Yankees, or we'll come watch Michigan at its home opener. Okay, how about that? A good thing, you know.
It's so Trumpy, and just the plug going from the Yankees. He's like, oh, let's talk about the Yankees. And then it's like, okay, wait a second. Yankees, probably most people may not like the Yankees. What about Michigan? Yeah, Michigan. Being able to just directly connect and pander to the people like that is, you know how Michigan people are about Michigan.
He didn't say Michigan State, so he lost me. I'm voting Biden. I don't know anything about sports, even local sports. I know that Michigan is a team and that Michigan State is a team, and that's about all I know. And I like Michigan State better because it's closer to me and I like the colors better. That's about as far as, I don't know anything about sports.
I would love to hear Jim Harbaugh's take on what's going on right now. I know that won't mean anything to you, but for those of you who out there who know Jim Harbaugh, hearing him weigh in on this whole thing would be absolutely magical. You would, if you knew who Jim Harbaugh was, you would really appreciate Jim Harbaugh. He's very Trumpian in a lot of ways. Just kind of I don't know if he's a boomer, but he's very boomer in like his behavior and stuff. Just a total spaz. He's great. Shout out to Thomas Review, $4.99 super chat. He says Trump 2024, Vance 2028, Vance 2032, Barron Trump for all of time.
Oh yeah,
sign me up. Let's do it. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the cold hard American cash. We're getting some real money. You guys also, if you want to support the show, we would very much appreciate that. It enables us to keep doing this and do it more, and I'd like to do it more. The best way to support the show is join the King Pill Discord. Just go to kingpill.com, sign up there. We got a great group of guys in there, and that's the way you can get the most for right now. But you also, if you want to support us, you can send us a super chat, or you can become a channel member, join the King Pilled, and we'll have some other ways for you guys to support us coming here soon. Minoan says, I haven't seen him being self-deprecating before. Yeah, I don't think I really have either. That seems.
I was just gonna say that.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a pretty distinct change. Which would probably correspond to, having someone take a shot at you, having a near-death experience. I could see becoming, everyone's talking about him being more spiritual and existential and humble and everything. Now he's just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, yeah, look how fucked up my hair is. Isn't that great?
I wonder if he got it dyed recently. It looks extra, yellow.
It does, yeah. One thing I noted, as soon as I saw this, the clips from this.
He's looking golden.
Yes, very much.
Positively radiant.
He's glowing. Maybe that's his spiritual change that he's had. It's just gone straight up into all of his hairs, just right up through the follicles.
Yeah, all the vril has left his balls and gone to his hair follicles.
Yeah, his power levels are rising. Have money from Michael Robertson. Thank you, man. $10 US. $10 US. Appreciate you. All right.
That'll almost get you a pack of spirits.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, YouTube's going to take their cut, so that'll get you a pack of Zin for sure.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to weigh in here. The ons here, they're terrible. They absolutely suck. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to finish them, but it's nice that it's an 8 milligram. I like the higher amount, but they make my mouth feel really shitty.
I got 2 rolls of the Zins here. Trying out the cinnamon. It's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee's pretty good. I just tried the coffee one. It doesn't really taste like coffee. It tastes like caramel, but it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite is probably any of the minty ones. I've always enjoyed mint everything. Mint chocolate chip ice cream, mint juleps. I like mint.
The menthol's a little mediocre. The wintergreens, that's probably the GOAT.
Yep, wintergreen and spearmint. Okay. This one here is another. He's too good at this.
And they keep saying he's a threat to democracy. I'm saying, what the hell did I do for democracy? Last week I took a bullet for democracy. What did I do against democracy? Crazy.
That's my favorite part there, right at the end. His face.
And they keep saying he's
right here. I just noticed these never surrender. What do they call the signs? I guess the never surrender signs back here. This is, man, imagine showing someone this shot right here. Yeah. Imagine showing someone this shot right here from, doing it like 2-4 years ago. Never surrender. It's very lighthearted, but the dark MAGA sentiment is definitely spreading. $5 super chat from P. Quinones in the chat. He says, Andrew Torba is on fire. Andrew Torba is absolutely going nuclear, and it's great to see. He is, the messaging is on point. He is revealing himself to absolutely be one of our guys. And yeah, I'm very glad to see that.
Totally gets it.
Mm-hmm. We need more Andrew Torbas.
You see Milo recently talking a bunch of shit about the Groypers. It's really great to see.
Yeah. Milo went dark MAGA too. He got the dark MAGA profile. Yeah. That's I don't know how you can possibly not get it. Not get the significance of the tech billionaires. Like Mark Andreessen and Elon Musk both have dark MAGA profile pictures. you're not going to make it if you don't understand what's happening. The significance of like people, oh, they're just pandering to us, or are they just, it's just like, you guys are so easy. Not only are these guys promoting Trump, they're promoting dark MAGA. Do you understand the significance of the social consequences for them doing this? The circles that they run in, the people who are adjacent to them, the pressure that they're putting on those people by associating themselves with this. This is not your granddaddy's right-wing business coalition. These guys are very different. They are putting their balls on the line, and some of you guys have the audacity to black pill. I don't get it. Okay, we got to keep pushing through here because we've got a whole lot of shit to talk about. The flip side. Here's the flip side of the Trump clips that we just watched. I apologize for what I'm about to do to you guys.
Am I gonna have to mute my headphones?
You might, yeah, you might. So Curtis LeMay did nothing wrong on Twitter at NeoAmericana. Another great follow. He said, the only good thing about this clip is that you can see Kamala cringe all the way down into her own butthole the exact same way I did while watching it. So Drew Barrymore is ready to weigh in.
Thinking in my head that we all need a mom. I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. Yeah. But in our country,
wait for it.
We need you to be Mamala of the country.
Mamala!
And as a woman who respects so much and wants to share and wants to be confident and has no ounce of me that has competitiveness. Yeah.
Her body language.
We lift each other up. We all rise.
That's exactly right. That's right. That's right.
However, we need a great protector. Share and
watch her pull her hands away
and has no
please give me my hands
ounce of me that
give
has
me my hands,
competitiveness.
Please. Let go. Yeah.
When we lift each other
let go,
up,
please.
We all rise.
Please let go of me. Stop touching me.
That's right. That's
right. Say what you will about Kamala, but even she is cringing out of her mind. She wanted to extract herself from that situation so bad. This is, if you are looking at, well, we'll talk about Kamala here more in a little bit, because like I said at the beginning, I don't think Kamala is going to be, I don't think Kamala is the regime candidate that is going to be amplified in the way that everyone seems to think.
Silver Pie says, I feel the need to smoke 3 cigars at the same time to get my T levels back up. I have smoked 2 cigars at the same time and I threw up, so I don't recommend doing that.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
There is such thing as too much nicotine. You got to spread it out a little bit.
So obviously everyone at this point is well aware of what happened yesterday. And I guess to set this up just a little bit, it was interesting yesterday. Elon Musk, shortly after that happened, he tweeted out that he said something about like executives need to run their own accounts, like executives need to make their own tweets. And he was quote tweeting someone or replying to someone, so he wasn't speaking to it directly. But I was like, it's not a coincidence that he's talking about this right now, because the way that this went down, it's very obvious. We're going to get into some of the things. The one guy's got an interesting theory, but it's very obvious this was not a Joe Biden decision. I don't know if Joe Biden's still alive. I don't know if we're ever going to see him again. Yeah. I think there's a very good chance that we never see Joe Biden again. We've seen him in public for the last time. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So like one of the most obvious examples of this is the signature, which this blows my mind. This shows how incompetent these people are. How difficult would it be to get a real signature in the age of digital signatures? How do they not have just a boilerplate Joe Biden signature to place on something?
Or to trace. Yeah, why don't they have a stamp or something?
Right. This is look at so the two clearest examples that this is not something, this was not written by Joe Biden. This was written by someone forging his signature. Because you can see, you can't see it super well on this image, but if you get a high res image of this and you zoom in, the N here, his N comes off like a Z, and the N here comes off like an S. So it's being written by someone different. The biggest one though is look at the B.
Yep.
A detached single line with like a 3 kind of versus a single line that goes up. Joe Biden's actual signature is not anywhere close to this. This is very obviously a forged signature. Why do they need to have a forged signature for him?
For a guy with dementia, I gotta say, there's quite a bit of consistency. Like, his signature looks pretty good. His real one.
This one here, they look similar enough. I think they're identical. I think it's the exact same one. Like, I think they've been using a what do you call it? Like a, when you sign a digital document, you have like a preloaded signature that you put in there. I'm sure that's what they've used for this. That's what I would expect them to use.
Right.
But they don't use it for this. They put a line underneath it. He never puts a line underneath his signature. I looked at a bunch of different signatures, and he's never put a line underneath it like that. This is just sloppy. You could say, oh, they're trying to signal it or something. Why? I was thinking about this last night. I should put this into a tweet. The reason that I don't buy the black pillars, this is just the tech CEOs are just a deep regime plot. This is Israel angling from another direction. The reason I don't believe all of that, is because
they intentionally forged the signature poorly just to wave their power in your face.
Right. I'm not a big enough of a conspiracy theorist apparently to buy that. Yeah. The idea, it's far more straightforward and parsimonious. Our narrative about what the tech CEOs are doing is far more straightforward and parsimonious than this super elaborate 4D chess, like the worst of QAnon level rationalizing that you have to do to try to turn this into some sort of actually super sinister plot to go after us. That's the deranged conspiracy theory that is completely departed from reality. I've always seen myself as being I'm very willing to believe a lot of conspiracies most people aren't. I've never had a problem with conspiracy theories, and the great irony here is that I find myself being like, you guys are completely out to lunch on down a conspiracy rabbit hole that I just can't follow you down. It just doesn't make sense. So this here, Frog Butt at Butt Watermelon.
It's a great name. I love him. Yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah. He says, so there's a screenshot here from this article that was posted before. Meet the young woman who pretends to be President Biden. Megan Coyne, a 20-something New Jersey native, interned on Phil Murphy's 2017 gubernatorial campaign just 5 years ago. Today, she writes Joe Biden's tweets on X. And I remember seeing this story a little while ago. I don't remember how long ago. Basically, everything before 2 weeks ago might have been 10 years ago for all I care.
She kind of looks like that lady. You know that famous, I don't know her name. She looks like the Bogdanov twins. It's that lady, like the cat lady who got so much plastic surgery. Her face is all round and pumpkin looking, and
yeah,
she looks kind of like that.
Yeah, she's got the lopsided eyes. Like one eye is a lot bigger than the other one. This is not encouraging physiognomy. She says, so did Megan Coyne just coup the president of the United States of America? This seems, if I was to base
Dude,
on
what if she was just acting entirely independently? What if it was just a meme? Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Yes, that's the amazing thing about the time we live in right now, is that could have been all it was. It could have literally been a single staffer just going rogue, typing this thing up, forging the signature, and hitting tweet. And you just resigned a president of the United States. How insane is that?
That's awesome.
And this is why people who formerly were bought into the regime do not want anything to do with this. Think about being like a head of state somewhere outside the U.S. and you see this is what's happening with the leadership. What's going on with the nuclear football right now? Who's got that? Where is that?
Mm-hmm.
Who's in charge? Who's running the show? there's an open conflict happening between the Harris staffers and the Biden staffers that's been leaking out. The entire DNC is backstabbing each other. There's nobody running the show. All it would have taken here, and this is what I think happened. I think actually, all they had to do. There's going to be actually. You know what? I'll just read read what I have here because it covers a lot of what I was going to say. So gfodor.id. I don't know who this guy is, but he says, I'm going to sound like Alex Jones, but I legit think they ran a coup on Joe. Here's what I suspect we'll find out to some degree or another, probably never confirmed fully. I understand the coup they ran on Trump with the FISA warrants. I'm cynical enough to imagine they would do this. They threw everything at Biden to get him to drop out. They tried to destroy his character, set him up with the debate, all the other character assassination. Then Hunter and Jill put up a wall. The remaining avenue was to bribe them. I'm guessing they offered them pretty much anything. But the issue to me fundamentally is you can't offer something to the first lady better than another term, and you can't offer something to a father better than pardon power if he has a son whose past crimes are not fully understood and who may be entangled with things that lead to future crimes. Now, I don't think that Hunter and Jill are like the one thing that's just standing against them and they just can't figure out how to get Hunter and Jill out of the way. It would be very easy to get Hunter and Jill out of the way if that's all it was. Clearly, what's at play here is there are the people who want Biden out of the way so they can install someone else. And I think that even those people split into who they want to install. And then you also have a faction that wants Biden to stay there because they understand the catastrophe that's going to be caused by going down this road. So there's a lot of powerful interests behind Biden, and the powerful interests behind Biden are behind him for different reasons. And then there are powerful interests who want Biden out. And then of those people, there's a subset who want Kamala and a subset who want others. So I would say there's probably at least 3, if not 4 significant factions who are jockeying for power within the DNC right now. And they're ultimately going to coalesce probably into 2. I would say that's most likely what's going to happen. And ultimately, this is going to be what fractures the DNC permanently. But I think otherwise, for the most part, along this tweet here, he gets a lot of this right. He says, so where you end up is you have to reach deeper into the toolbox. The way I think this goes is you realize that the way to finally get capitulation is to have the public believe for a news cycle that Biden has dropped out of his own accord, but hasn't. In this scenario, it can't be walked back. Run it through. So once that tweet was sent, you can't unsend it. You can't say, oh, actually, sorry, that was a mistake. I'm not actually resigning.
Right.
It's done. All you have to do is turn one single person who has tweet access to Biden's account, which is there's probably, 50 people that have that access, and you just turn one of them and get them to post it. This is what he says. So you flip. So to run this play, you really just need 2 things. You need a way to distribute an ostensible resignation from a credible source, and you need the candidate to be maximally incapacitated to respond. So you flip the right comms people who can post to X and other social media. Then, this is dark, you send people into the White House with COVID. This is where crimes may have occurred, but it is basically a perfect crime. Then once the candidate tests positive, you do a dry run to see if your flipped comms people end up getting blowback for posting something the candidate would never allow. The I'm sick tweet. I think this is an interesting theory here that the I'm sick tweet was like a dry run for this to ensure that you can actually pull this off. You also now leak fake stories to the press that the candidate is imminently going to drop out. You line up party leadership to agree that if Biden resigns, they will line up the way you want. If things look good, you wait until the day the candidate is maximally ill during the course of COVID and blast out a resignation. As long as you have a solid cycle where the candidate can't even physically react and his family knows that the game theory is now against them. The public and even the party leadership is now set up entirely to accept the resignation, and many people who flipped have insane counter-incentives to accept any claims by the candidate it was not intended. And the candidate, of course, wakes up a day later and realizes if they dispute the resignation, they lose everything. Instead, they now take the deal with the entire world already aligned on the new reality. Now, I don't know if they necessarily need to have actually infected Biden with COVID. I think the narrative that he has COVID is a very easy narrative to use. The flip side of that would be if he didn't actually have it, you run the risk of individual people who don't like what's happening starting to leak and say he doesn't actually have COVID, and it just it escalates even more. So I think there's probably a good chance that he's actually sick. Whether or not he has COVID is, it doesn't really matter. But I do think now they have the setup here perfectly for just disappearing Joe. You just never see him again. The president of the United States has been successfully cooed out. You don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of the 25th Amendment. This was something that someone in the King Pill Discord was suggesting last week, I think, that the only alternative they have here is to take out Joe. And you probably don't want to have a similar sort of thing as what happened with Trump, because what happened with Trump definitely didn't work and made everything worse. And you don't want all the fallout of yet another public event like that, shall we say. So this is much more parsimonious. This is just, you just disappear him and never have to worry about it again. So I think Kamala, if I remember right, Kamala has a press conference or something announced this afternoon. I think we may be seeing President Kamala from here on out. I think we've gotten to that point, and we'll see what happens with President Kamala. Okay, so now CrowdStrike. Do you have any other thoughts on the Biden Kamala coup? Anything associated with that?
Yeah, no.
All right. So let's talk about CrowdStrike. I've got a couple tweets here. This is, I think the CrowdStrike outage was not a coincidence. The timing of it was not a coincidence. And I mentioned on a show last week, I talked about how CrowdStrike was the company associated with the whole Russiagate thing. This isn't the first time that CrowdStrike has appeared on the scene like this.
Can I chime in?
Yes.
Hey, both and can you just say what you're talking about? Why are you being all like cryptic and stuff? Just like say it.
What's he saying?
I don't know. He said black pill incoming and then said a bunch of cryptic shit, and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking about. So just say what you're talking about or drop it.
Yes. Don't cryptic post in the live chat. Some is not from enemies, black pills, or truth. Yeah, just say what you're saying. Just say what you're trying to say. So Ariel, I don't know this Proletario one. I don't know who this guy is, but he says, people, listen to me. If you do not think today is massive on a historical scale, let me inform you about CrowdStrike. The servers are located in Ukraine. Can you say election interference? This is a deep state cybersecurity company. People, this is a national security threat. What did D. Trump receive officially yesterday? Now, I want you to think about those in the Democratic Party specifically, even though both sides of the political aisle are compromised. Let's just say we're being partisan for shits and giggles. Who helped set up the biolabs in Ukraine before they even became president? Barack Obama. Who was found to be money laundering out of Ukraine? Joe Biden. Who was found to be funneling money to Zelensky through the FTX and the trading firm Alameda Research Platform and donating to the Democratic Party? Sam Bankman-Fried. Who were the people in Congress who were caught money laundering out of Ukraine? Kevin McCarthy, Steve Cohen, Diana Harshbarger, John Axney, Dwight Evans, Fred Upton, etc. There are many more, of course, that were named last year, but this is about CrowdStrike. Do you know now that the bulk data collected on this outage is going to be given directly to Donald Trump? Now, this is where I don't know if this is true. I think everything you said to this point is correct, and I've seen a lot of things. I've been following a lot of things for a while that I've just been holding loosely. That there's a lot of anecdotes. And then there's people connecting the anecdotes. But there are a lot of things that have been happening for a long time. I think that's what we're seeing now is a revelation that a lot of these operations have been in play for a long time. And by a long time, I mean like at least a decade. There's been a counter-elite faction that has been aware of the situation. They've known what time it is, so to speak, for a long time. And they're connected into the business world. They're connected into the banking world. They're connected into the military world. I don't think Trump just came out of nowhere. I don't think Trump just decided to run on his own. I think it's very clear that he was approached. and that he has been working with people behind the scenes to some extent. Now, are those people just little kind of one-offs that don't have a lot of influence? Are they much more powerful, but they've been laying low? There was this astrology chick who was posting stuff in 2020 that's been coming back around, and she predicted on 7/11. She said that Biden is going to resign on 7/21 because of something having to do with some astrology shit.
Right, yeah.
I'm not saying you need to believe every single thing that every single person like this puts out, but I'm saying that their record is improving. The hippies, the astrologists, the QAnon people, all of these people have been on to something. Now, they individually they take it off in various different directions because they're working on limited information, but we no longer can just outright just throw these people out. We can't just dismiss them out of hand. The world is much stranger than it appears. So, I think there are factions that very much appear to be regime loyalists who have not been regime loyalists for a long time, but they need to have the appearance of regime loyalists in order to continue playing the role that they've been given. So I don't know for sure if, as he says, the bulk data collected on this outage is going to be given directly to Trump. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't think it can be ruled out. And either way, whether this is white hats behind the scenes who are going to be giving stuff over to Trump, whether they're former black hats who have been turned or whatever. Keep an eye on this. Watch what's happening here. I don't know the answer to all of these things, but there's much more than meets the eye. He says, this reaches the highest level of government. People ask yourself why this is all coming out hours after Trump took his nomination at the RNC. Did he tell you on July 10th that the final battle takes place in 7 days? Now look at all the events that has transpired since you went to sleep. This is all connected to the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI. You can understand the magnitude of what happened with the assassination attempt much clearer. Because the deep state knew that once Trump became the nominee, he would no longer wait to strike, as what he now is doing is officially public knowledge and can bring everything happening behind the scenes into the forefront for public discourse. Because Joe Biden took this privilege away from him 2 years ago. Now does the phrase panic in D.C. make more sense? I can go on, but I have to start on you some yard work, more info bombs coming later. This is not just a simple cybersecurity breach. Here's some more stuff laying out the story behind CrowdStrike from Harrison Smith. He says, so let me see if I have this CrowdStrike story straight. When Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she was illegally funneling sophisticated weapons through Libya to terrorists in the Middle East in an effort to take out Assad in Syria for Israel. When the weapons transfer went sideways and the U.S. ambassador was killed in Benghazi, it was discovered that she was using an illegal private server for secret communications. She destroyed the server, but not before its contents were leaked by WikiLeaks, including communications about bizarre occult rituals and inexplicable code words involving children and pizza. Instead of investigating the leak themselves, the FBI relied on a CrowdStrike investigation that falsely claimed the server was hacked by Russia. The FBI cleared Hillary Clinton despite admitting she broke the law and launched the Russiagate investigation using more fake Clinton campaign disinfo to tie Trump to Russia to get a FISA warrant and spy on Trump while leaking dirt to the press to undermine first his campaign, then his presidency. When Trump had a call with Zelensky and asked about CrowdStrike, a, quote, whistleblower falsely claimed quid pro quo and launched the first impeachment to stop Trump's inquiries. It was in the midst of this impeachment trial, by the way, when Event 201 took place, but that's another story. Fast forward to 2024, and Trump is dominating Biden when he miraculously survives a deep state orchestrated assassination attempt 2 days before the RNC. 2 days later, CrowdStrike causes the biggest computer network crash in all of history, knocking millions of corporate and government systems offline for hours. Other than the fact that BlackRock owns CrowdStrike and a BlackRock-affiliated investment firm placed millions of dollars betting against DJT in the hours before the assassination attempt by a shooter who was featured in a BlackRock promo, did I miss anything? This post brought to you by Brainforce Plus, now on sale at InfoWarsStore.com.
What's Brainforce Plus? Is that some supplement?
I think, yeah, I'm sure it's
like
probably what is the
super male vitality.
Yeah, right.
The Alex Jones boner pills.
Yes, yeah. Alex Jones boner pills. Yeah, this is. I don't know where this CrowdStrike thing is going. I don't know all the details of what's going on behind it, but based on what I do know, there's It's not an accident, and all of this stuff is interconnected. I think the whole story of the assassination, we've talked about this multiple times, but the whole story of the assassination, the actual facts of it are only useful to the extent that they can be formed into a narrative, to the extent that that narrative can be used as a bulldozer. I think I said this in a group chat yesterday, that a J13 commission, echoing the J6 commission, a J13 commission becomes a fantastic institutional bulldozer that is a weapon that can be wielded as a vector for ferreting out a tremendous amount of corruption. And there are massive interests that want this, not because they're like given over to, the romantic narrative of America and we need transparency and honesty and all of that, but because this gives them a great chance to absolutely nuke their opposition, absolutely nuke their political opposition, and amass together massive political and economic advantages. I think it's very easy for once you go down the black pill road, it's very easy to just see literally every single powerful actor as representing the same interests. And it makes it very easy. It kind of offloads the responsibility to have to I don't know, use any sort of rationality or anything. You could just portray it all as a gigantic conspiracy targeted directly at you personally to subvert everything you love. And that's just not, there's nothing real about that. There's never been anything real like that. The world has never been made of one single faction that's permeated every single powerful institution and is all working toward the same end. It's completely ahistorical, and it doesn't even make sense. If you have a really low resolution view of, and you've got maybe 50 people possible that your mind can comprehend, then you can create these really low resolution narratives. But the fact of the matter is there are a tremendous number of wealthy, powerful, influential people who have been going along with the regime narrative despite not liking it because of the potential career and economic and social consequences of speaking out against it. But they've also been working behind the scenes to try to change things so that they're free to operate. And this isn't just strictly the tech CEOs. The tech CEOs are becoming the vanguard for that influence. And they're the ones who are making it socially acceptable to be pro-Trump. And being pro-Trump is itself a vector for being anti-regime interests. As the regime interests become more and more consolidated and focused, and it becomes clearer and clearer how malevolent this is, they spaz out even further, which reveals themselves to be what they are even further, which drives even more people away from them. Yesterday, I tweeted out a clip I saw of a Tampa Bay Rays player. That's baseball for the non-sports ballers out there. He slid into second. There's this thing that's in baseball for a while where, like, when a guy gets a hit or he has some great play or whatever, he signals back to the dugout, and they have all kinds of different signals and stuff, like hand gestures and everything that they do to each other. He slid into second base, stood up, raised his fist to the dugout, and went, "Fight, fight." And then the St. Louis Cardinals, another baseball team, their dugout was doing the same thing. There is, for the non-sports ball enjoyers out there, you may not realize, or you may, how thoroughly paused the sports media world is. Of all the different media environments, sports media is probably the most radically progressive. I've swam in these waters for well over a decade now. These guys doing that, they know the potential costs of this. It was like a year ago that guys were being like publicly prosecuted in the media for not openly endorsing Pride Night. This is the environment that they're in. So we're talking about a vibe shift. That's a vibe shift. Seeing professional baseball players who are generally, the players themselves are actually pretty conservative. Them coming out and being willing to be publicly pro-Trump is a really big deal socially. And when I dipped my toe into my super progressive sports circles that I follow, they're freaking out about it in an extremely demoralized way. The wind has been completely sucked out of their sails. They're just like, oh, this is happening now. Oh yeah, of course. This is just, we can't even enjoy our baseball anymore without having political slogans shoved in our faces. And the irony is just delicious. It is absolutely delicious. And their replies, like the reporters and the large sports accounts and stuff that I follow who are bemoaning this, their replies are full of people telling them to suck it. The floodgates have opened and people are emboldened. Now, this means we're now going to start seeing more and more desperation on the progressive side.
And a lot more grifting.
Yes, that's true. Yep. Because there's plenty of them who are they just want to follow whatever's popular. So you're going to see more and more prominent accounts, whether sports or other things, who are going to start signaling pro-Trump stuff because they're following the winds of power and the winds of popularity. When that happens, that's a good thing. Don't fight it. Don't go be like, oh, you fucking hypocrite. Look at this tweet you posted before. We want people who are grifting on our brands because that makes them even more popular. That instantiates them as real and authoritative and powerful even more. Let them grift. Don't fight them. We want them to be demoralized. We want the shit libs to be demoralized. But you don't want that demoralization necessarily going all the way to desperation. Because desperation is when they start doing stupid shit. That's the accelerationist take, and I guess maybe if you're accelerationist, then you might want that. But I think it's good to have a kind of a tension here where we want them demoralized, but we don't want them desperate. You want them to just resign themselves to this is the way things are going to be now. And I just need to fall in line. We want them going anonymous with their political beliefs because we don't want those things being amplified. Magoo says a wounded animal lashes out. The regime is going to get desperate and sloppy, and they already are. Bryce says desperation is burning cities. Right. Okay, so we got 104 watching on YouTube and 43 likes. Do me a favor and hit the like button. We're almost an hour in here, and we've still got probably about 10 more tabs to get through, so we're going to keep jamming. So there's been lots of hand-wringing about the RNC platform and the way that Trump came in and gutted it, took away the hardline stance on gay marriage and abortion, and everyone's been blackpilling about this. So first of all, I want to read this. I'm sorry for putting Richard Hanania in front of you guys, but he was the one who screenshotted this, so it works. He says, Trump personally dictated the new RNC language on abortion and gay marriage. His team put the delegates in a room, took their phones, and Trump said, you're going to pass this and you're going to do it quickly. Night of the long knives for social conservatives. So we'll read the actual screenshots. He says, Mr. Trump made it clear to his team that he wanted the 2024 platform to be his and his alone. He wanted it to be much shorter and simpler, and in some cases, vaguer. He was especially focused on the language about abortion, which he recognized was a potentially potent issue against him in a general election. He wanted nothing in the platform that would give Democrats an opening to attack him, and he made clear to aides that he was perfectly fine with bucking social conservatives, for whom he had delivered a tremendous victory by reshaping the Supreme Court with a conservative supermajority. So he's running a presidential campaign to get elected by the entire country, and so he's recognizing simply pandering to my base isn't sufficient. Mr. Trump also stressed that he did not want to define marriage as between one man and one woman. Instead, the document contains a vague statement open to interpretation. Quote, Republicans will promote a culture that values the sanctity of marriage. One person involved in the process recalled Mr. Trump saying privately, sanctity of marriage, don't define it. 3 months ago, Mr. Trump's team set about giving him the platform he wanted. The Trump campaign decided it would go to every delegation in the country to handpick the people who would represent the campaign on committees for rules, credentials, and the party platform. It was an enormous organizational exercise overseen by Mr. Trump's senior advisor, James Blair. A small team was set to draft the platform. A speechwriter, Vance took the lead. There were only a handful of people on a list of those receiving the text, according to a person involved in the process who was not authorized to discuss the details publicly. Donald J. Trump long ago decided he wanted a very different Republican Party platform in 2024. The delegates who arrived in Milwaukee early last week before the Republican National Convention with grand plans of drafting a sweeping document of party principles quickly found out just how determined he was. Within minutes of their arrival, their cell phones were confiscated and placed in magnetically sealed pouches. There would be no leaks of information. It was only then that the delegates received a copy of the platform language the Trump team had meticulously prepared, which slashed the platform size by nearly 3/4. This is something that ultimately you'll pass, Mr. Trump told the delegates by phone and made audible to the room, according to a person who was there and who was not authorized to speak publicly. You'll pass it quickly. He was right. Within hours, the platform committee had endorsed a document that Mr. Trump had personally dictated parts of, according to two people with direct knowledge of the events, and it all happened before the delegates got their phones back. The committee passed the platform by a vote of 84-18. So, I understand I understand the concerns with this. However, you have to recognize what the purpose of this is. A political committee, the RNC, is not the church. You don't need them to be the church. It would be nice if they would reflect the values of the church, but we're not there right now. What he's doing by slashing the size of it is he's reducing attack vectors. This is realpolitik. He says to the base, I'm going to dog whistle to you. But I'm not going to make this explicit because that's going to hurt me electorally. A campaign platform is not the same as a governing platform. This has been obvious for a long time. Everyone's like, oh, this is the problem with the political system. And yes, but that's a feature, not a bug. That you can run on one thing and govern a different way is bad when it's not in your interests, and it's good when it is in your interests. This is the reality of the system as it exists right now. And if we want to change the system into something else, we first have to be able to exercise influence and control within the system. So, you can't just freak out and jump on every last little thing that comes up. When you know, Trump has been making all of these signals. You have the whole Project 2025 and Agenda 47 Art of the Deal thing, which I think I've got something in here we're going to talk about in a minute. You've got that thing happening. Stop falling for the tricks. Don't be so credulous. If you find yourself echoing the regime attack on Trump, whether it's from a different direction or not, recognize that you're working against your own interests. There is no other vector in the political system right now for our interests to be represented, apart from through Trump and the initiative that he represents right now. And there are, go ahead.
I just think it's funny how the black pillars will rightly look at the left, their platform, their governing, their talking points, etc., and be like, this is all bullshit. These people are lying to you. And then when the right's doing it, they're like acting, completely credulous.
Right.
Like, why would they say this?
Yeah, right. You can't on one hand complain that Republicans are politically incompetent, and then on the other hand complain when Republicans act politically competent. That's what this is. It's a dirty game. That's how it is. But libertarianism is not a Christian prescription. We've hit on this a number of times. I don't need to pull the Elder Ephraim and St. Paisios quotes up again. It's very, very. What is Taylor Brown says? For God's sake, a '90s New York liberal / reality TV stars who got Roe killed. What does that tell you? Exactly. Don't be credulous. Accept the wins when they're presented to you, even if they're not presented to you in exactly the right way that you want them to be. We need our guys to be politically competent and be able to win politically in the given political environment. And you have to do things within that environment if you're going to win that may rub your base the wrong way. And you just have to trust that your base is going to be intelligent enough to actually not just freak the fuck out and abandon ship every single time they see something they don't like. John says, agree, one step at a time. It's worth thinking through what the milestones are that need to be achieved incrementally over the next 4 years. We could learn a thing or two from the Silicon Valley guys on this stuff. Indeed. Okay. So related to this, Dusty Devers. This is a great name, Dusty Devers. Follower of Christ, husband, father, pastor, abolitionist, Oklahoma State Senator, District 32. Christ is Lord. He says, Trump, neocons, and the RNC. The removal of Christian morality from the RNC platform this week is a travesty that I fiercely oppose, but we must be realistic about what the previous platform really was. It was a tool for tricking Christian conservatives into thinking neoconservatives, the previous Republican establishment, were our friends. Let me explain. The neocon establishment, which dominated the party ever since George H.W. Bush defeated Pat Buchanan in the 1992 Republican presidential primary, paid lip service to being pro-life and pro-family while barely lifting a finger to defend preborn children. They simply didn't have the passion for social issues or the backbone to really take on the left. They fought for nothing and conserved nothing. Their social views merely trailed a few years behind the left's. But they needed Christians in their coalition, so they paid lip service to pro-lifers and allowed for Christianity in the party platform. But they never intended to take the bold action that needed taken. Forget abolition bills or human life amendments. Only one pro-life law was passed by the federal government in the 36 years since H.W. Bush became president, despite multiple instances of total GOP control. Even then, it was the partial birth abortion ban of 2003, which only prohibited the killing of children outside the womb. Like most others, it was a do-nothing pro-life bill. Any reasonable assessment of the social conservative neoconservative alliance results in the conclusion that Christians were played by the neocons who pandered to us for votes but never gave us results. During this time, many churches receded from moral majority type engagement to build more seeker-sensitive churches that explicitly shunned political engagement as divisive and distracting to the work of the gospel. These were all euphemisms to cover the cowardice of these churches as they refused to speak out on important cultural and political issues that our Lord speaks plainly about in his word.
Yeah.
The attractional, seeker-sensitive church was a perfect fit for the attractional, quote, compassionate conservative Republican Party. Out of those two attractional entities came the weak and compromising pro-life establishment organizations. It was a cozy and spineless pro-life, pro-family arrangement that benefited everyone except preborn children. So when we rightly rebuke the current RNC for conceding on social issues, we should do so under no misconception that the party was previously a stalwart defender of Christian morality. We should do so with zero intention to return to the Christian neocon alliance. We should do so while looking forward to a potentially new Republican Party that has both a backbone and Christian values. Which brings us to Donald Trump. Sick of spineless, feckless, family values neocons, Republican voters emphatically handed the reins in 2016 to someone who didn't speak the typical GOP language, but who capitalized on populist energy and offered brash opposition to the left. While Donald Trump has referenced God and Christian morals, one would be hard-pressed to say he has run on a consistent Christian platform or that he is a social conservative. That much has been made increasingly clear, culminating with his recent success in removing Christian values on abortion and marriage from the 2024 RNC platform. The fact that he is not a social conservative is honestly a feature, because social conservatives are politically incompetent, at least at this point in time. And Trump is buying social conservatives an opportunity to actually learn how to be politically competent. So in the past, you had a GOP platform that paid lip service to family values and pro-life causes, but provided no support for it whatsoever. Now we have a GOP that doesn't pay the lip service to it. However, as we continue, the populist movement Trump cultivated has led to the rise of right-wingers who are more socially conservative than Trump, who, unlike the neocons, actually have some testosterone and a backbone. Men like Ron DeSantis, Josh Hawley, J.D. Vance, and Ken Paxton. Under the previous neocon establishment, such men would never have been able to rise as they have. And while they are not where they need to be on abortion and marriage, they are the sort of men who are pulling the party to the right and who actually fight for what they say on the campaign trail. There is the potential to move guys like this to abolish abortion, restore the American way of life, and achieve other important objectives in a way that the neocons were never going to. My main point is this. There's no going back. What's behind us is even worse than the train wreck we're watching at the RNC right now. We must look forward, continue to minimize neocons, and influence the new right with abolitionist and Christian nationalist principles. While we should be horrified at the current actions of the RNC and righteously rebuke everybody responsible, Trump included, we should be thankful that we're not having this conversation with Jeb Bush. And I believe he is exactly right. What we're seeing now is almost an inversion of it, where in the past they were paying lip service to us, but then doing everything but in reality. And now we're seeing them paying lip service to the shitlib contingent of the RNC platform. When Trump put together this RNC platform, he put it together to appeal to the public. Like, clearly the Trump organization recognizes what time it is and recognizes that the RNC was not going to be something that was just catered toward Republicans. It needed to have mass appeal. And so that's what that platform was. It was something designed to have mass appeal and pay lip service to the idea that, no, we're not going to come in and take away your gay marriage and your abortion and your whatever else. No, don't worry about that. We're not going to do that. See, we've got this nice vague statement about Christian values, but it's not going to be, we're not coming in hard. Let me make sure I have this art of the deal thing, because if I do, we'll talk about that. Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that more here in just a minute. First of all, related to this, and also this was originally about the Home Depot lady, ancient history now. Ben Braddock says, the high-status few use the low-status many to obtain or retain power or achieve certain objectives. When the high priests wanted Jesus executed, they used a mob of rabble to get it done. The lumpen proles are willing foot soldiers because they know they will be shielded from consequences and ultimately rewarded by their high-status leaders. If you show that their leaders can no longer reliably protect them from punishment, the incentive matrix changes and you have a new game. At least that's how I view it in game theory terms. It certainly worked against us. It's important though, to not have an emotional attachment to this or that tactic. Different tactics work for different groups in different contexts. If it doesn't produce results, get rid of it. And Nate Fisher said this may be the best analysis of the Home Depot cashier firing. If you show that their leaders can no longer reliably protect them from punishment, the incentive matrix changes and you have a new game. And one of the best accounts on Twitter, Lee Enfield, says, this is a great point. I'll borrow Bogbeef's patronage chart and pose a question. If the left can neither protect the president of Harvard nor a lowly Home Depot clerk, which falters first? Loyalty, thanks, or allegiance? Or do all three suffer equally and simultaneously? So this is the patronage matrix. I don't know what you would call it. You have the patron, who offers protection, money, and access, to the client, who offers loyalty, thanks, and allegiance. What we now have rising is a class that is offering their services as patron to us. This is the as we put it in meme format, the PayPal mafia is offering us the opportunity to invest in a regime startup. They're offering us protection, money, and access. In return, we respond with loyalty, thanks, and allegiance. This is the proper patronage network. This is the structure of it. This was the value in carpet bombing a normie for publicly Fed posting about Trump and Trump supporters, because it breaks this. It breaks the patronage network. If the normies can no longer trust in their patrons to provide protection, money, and access for them to just do and say whatever they want, they're going to go looking for new patrons. Now, we have Trump as the archetypal patron right now. What he's offering us is patronage. He's going to offer the protection, the money, and the access, and we owe him the loyalty, the thanks, and the allegiance. To spit in the face of an offer of patronage is silly. You don't debate with your potential patron. If you're desperate for patronage, you don't debate with your potential patron over precisely how he's going to offer that to you. That's what you do when you're the patron. I've got another thread here from Revenant talking about this. Andrew Torba says there's been a love-hate relationship between Silicon Valley and the government for decades. The current regime has stifled innovation and slowed down the fast-paced nature of technology entrepreneurs, and they've had enough of it. You think this DEI and woke crap is helping them innovate? They're tired of it too. They're starting their own regime, gutting the current one, and ushering in a pro-growth, pro-technology era that is friendly to small business owners, builders, creators, and entrepreneurs. This is the most exciting time of opportunity since the end of World War II. I want our country and our people to be wealthy again. Do you know how many of our guys are going to become overnight multimillionaires when these people pump Bitcoin? You want to win? We need a patronage network. We need elites. We need a counter regime. We currently have none of that, so we need to work with what we've got. You're not going to win anything by whining online and blackpilling. This is a multi-generational long game play. Incremental victories, stop blackpilling, think bigger. Revenant says, this is the takeaway from all the but Peter Thiel, but JD Vance's donors. How do people think the elites have subverted and controlled the Western world for the past century and beyond? With bottom-up revolt? With populism? No, they did it with patronage networks. You think you're going to have some little grassroots movement and seize power away from elites whose families have been rigging this game for the past 1,000 years? People can't let go of their latent leftoid presumptions. A rich guy praised or funded something, so that thing is now tainted. Same pathology as a Jew did or said something, so now I have to discard the possibility of ever doing or saying that thing. Low IQ behavior.
Yep. Yeah.
Continuing with Revenant, he says, every revolution in history happened because one faction of elites was motivated to take out another faction of elites. The revolutionaries don't rise up against a monolithic ruling class. They are always backed by power competing against power. One segment of the ruling class seeking to depose another segment. Every revolution ultimately had money and connections behind it. Genuine popular revolts always fall into disarray or get crushed. You may try to dismiss this as elite theory autism, but you don't need to read lengthy treatises to figure this out. It's self-evident throughout history. Any dissident movement is going to have to accept this reality. If elites could be destroyed solely by the hatred and resentment of the peasantry, then there would never even be a stable elite class at all. It would be in constant flux, being overthrown by resentful proles every few months. But that doesn't happen and has never happened. Every counter-elite always has its own selfish motivations. Do we really believe the Founding Fathers just really loved freedom and all that stuff that we venerate them for? They did to a degree, but what was that all? We know we're not that naive. But was that all? I know we're not that naive. This is a response to a guy saying, it's true, but I'd hope the critiques of Thiel, etc., which I'm unfamiliar with, are based in his motivations rather than him being rich. Shout out to Taylor Brown in the chat. He says, acquiring power requires courting power. This is not a groundbreaking concept, but it is a vital and essential one. Malleability is the most fundamental element in this endeavor. Purity tests do nothing but undermine and subvert. So if you're not willing to recognize the reality that is this counter-elite movement, if you want to try to purity test these guys, you're welcome to do that. You could do that. Just know that you're willingly throwing yourself in with losers. That you're following the losing arc of history that's going to die. And if you're bringing your own values along with that, you bear that responsibility. Another Andrew Torba tweet. And this is going to get us into the Bukele stuff. He says, I can't believe I have to explain the art of the deal. How do you still not see what's going on? So he's got some of his terminology here not exactly right, but you get the idea of what he's saying. So the Project 2025 stuff is classic anchoring or extreme initial demand strategy and negotiation, which is a common practice in the art of the deal. It involves making an extreme initial request or proposal to establish a high anchor point, which makes subsequent, more reasonable demands seem less extreme in comparison.
That's so basic, man.
Yeah, right.
That's basic sales.
Right. This is why I've been saying for months that our guys need to learn sales.
That's, I posted in the Discord that tweet from Lauren Chen or something like that, and then all the big pundits, all the grifters were all like, oh, we don't understand what's going on. Why is Trump counter signaling Bukele? What's going on with the RNC? They're just totally not getting it, and it's really this simple.
Right.
It's this simple.
And when you don't get something this simple, and then you start to lash out and get super shitty about it, that's even worse. Like, if you don't get it, you could say, hey, I don't understand this. Can someone explain it for me? And then someone can explain it. And then you see it, and it's like, oh, wow, yeah, that's really obvious. But if you're spazzing out over this, like Max Kaiser is losing his shit over Trump talking about Bukele.
Doesn't get it.
Doesn't get it. He may be a billionaire, but he's still just a spurg. And it's even worse because you're not only are you ignorant, but you're loudly advertising the fact that you're ignorant.
Yeah.
By introducing Project 2025 to be knocked down by Trump, he effectively anchored the negotiation at an extreme point. This made Agenda 47, which is a less extreme but still significant plan, appear more reasonable by comparison. As a result, the left and other critics were drawn into a negotiation trap where they found themselves opposing Project 2025 and inadvertently supporting the more moderate yet still significant and very similar Agenda 47. So when they come out and they attack Project 2025 and they try to force Trump to distance himself from Project 2025, and then he willingly distances himself from it, they've now implicitly endorsed Agenda 47.
Which this just seems so obvious. Like, have you like never, I don't know, sold something on freaking Facebook?
Right.
An old game system or a car or something like that. Like, you always ask for more than you think it's worth because you expect someone's going to offer less, and you want the middle to be higher than what you actually wanted for it.
Right.
So this is basic.
And so if you see yourself as a someone who wants Trump to be successful, someone who wants Trump to represent your interests, if you like Project 2025 and you want to see Project 2025 happen in some way, and you're spazzing the fuck out about this, you are actively undermining the thing that you claim to support and want. I don't know how this isn't super obvious to people. He says, this strategy effectively normalized Agenda 47 by making it seem like a reasonable compromise in comparison to the more extreme Project 2025, art of the deal. And then he corrected himself. Shout out to Woe. He says they've learned a lot in 8 years now to see if they can execute. And this reminds me of the Tobias Ruck tweet the other day that it's a weird world that we live in now where you can no longer just comfortably assume that internet autists are more politically sophisticated than the actual people who are running Trump's campaign. He's got himself surrounded by our guys. I saw Johnny McEntee is posting now, starting to raise his own profile, which is a great thing. And he did in like TikTok form the Corey Mahler tweet about remember when you're arguing with a boomer, you're arguing with the TV, and the TV doesn't care. Johnny McEntee was doing that. Like, there are so many opportunities right now, and if you're blackpilling, you're missing them. I don't want you guys to miss these opportunities. I've had multiple people who've reached out to me already, and they've said, I've got so much hope now because I have something I can go do. As I see these Silicon Valley guys making these moves, all of a sudden now I feel comfortable like going and working for them. Trying to figure out where they're going to align myself there so that I can benefit from this prosperity revival that they're trying to bring about. And even if they're doing it cynically, that's all the more reason to lean into it even harder and force them to actually have to continue to back up their cynical ploy. They're doing it for whatever their own reasons are, but they're happy to bring people along. And the more that you actually endorse it and support it and promote it and claim it as ours, the more pot committed they become to actually having to follow through on all of these things. So even if you're really jaded about their motivations, the conclusion should still be the same.
Well, and it seems that if somebody's doing something out of self-interest, if you want to look at it cynically, that's even more reason to try to get on board, as opposed to them doing something simply out of charity.
Right.
Because it's a lot harder to maintain doing something just out of charity, the goodness of your heart over like, hey, this benefits me.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, because if they're doing it cynically, the only way there's going to be follow-through is if people pick up that mantle and run with it, rather than just sitting there and waiting for them to fix it. And I think that's really behind the psychology of the nothing ever happens, the counter signalers, the black pillars. Yeah, they want someone they just want daddy to show up and just fix it. They don't want to have their own responsibility, have to actually invest themselves, have to take a chance, have to take risks. They don't want to do any of that. They just want someone to come in and just fix it all. And so each time someone shows up, they're like, well, you might be fixing these things, but you're not going to fix those things, so you're not my guy. You could just do this ad infinitum forever. But at some point, you're going to have a civic responsibility to get the fuck on board. There are 2 shows in town. You can pick one or you can pick the other. And you could say, oh, well, there's got to be... This is the reality of the system right now. You can get on board. That's it. You have the choice to get on board or not. And if you don't get on board, what you're saying is this option should not have my positive influence on it. I don't have an obligation to influence this thing in a positive direction. I don't see how you can wrap your mind around that as a Christian.
Or you're just kind of signaling your impotence, that you don't have the ability to influence it.
Right. Yeah, those are the only options. Direction. Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're black-pilled, if you're of that mindset, you probably maybe just sit this one out.
Yeah.
You're probably just going to drag things down.
Yep. Meta Prime says people have long been looking for alternatives to the mainstream delusion. They didn't have the ability to build it themselves, but they will definitely help support it. We need to get more people into these good companies. Even X still has some paused people in it, and we need more of our guys flooding in. Tyler says Buchanan was a man out of time and a man out of place, the idyllic congressman. To draw such fear, opponents in the present and vindicated by the lens of time truly reveals the enemy within. Yeah, like, how do you think that old Pat feels about all this? Where do you think he stands on this? You've got a lot of guys who revere Pat Buchanan. Just like I said the other day, all the guys who were blackpilling because Trump picked Vance instead of Eric Prince, when it was like, was Prince ever an option? But Eric Prince sure seems to be very happy about Vance. So, like, look at the people who you revere and see what they're doing. That should give you a signal as to what direction you should go. Otherwise, you gotta stop revering them. So the thing with Bukele is so I guess I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't know, but Trump has now loudly counter-signaled Bukele twice. The first time was in his RNC speech, and listening to it live, I thought that he was talking about Venezuela because there's a very similar dynamic happening with Venezuela, and then it became clear, like listening back again, it was obvious he intentionally counter-signaled Bukele, and then he did it again, even more harshly during his rally. And so everyone's blackpilling about this. Oh, how is Trump doing this? He's going to cost himself all the Hispanic voters, and Bukele is one of the greatest things that's happening, and he's just torching all this political capital, and how could he be so stupid, and yada, 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 yada. Meanwhile, so Trump is out here loudly counter-signaling Bukele, right? Meanwhile, you have, at the exact same time, you have Trump proxies meeting with Bukele.
My friends, good to see you, Mr. President. I'm so excited to bring some of my friends and colleagues here.
Thank you.
We're going to be doing a lot of that.
Thanks.
Coming years. This is Congressman Dan Bishop.
Hi, Congressman. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too.
Thank you. Congressman Andy Biggs.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you too.
Congressman Alex Mooney.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Please. Yeah, right here.
So you've got Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs, Dan Bishop, and Alex Mooney. So this should be one thing you should take away from this is keep an eye on these four guys. They're the delegation going down to meet with Bukele. And then also Bukele launched his own coffee brand. This is the coolest thing. Bukele's now selling made in El Salvador coffee, and he's got a whole influencer contingent online who are all advertising it for him. We live in a new era, folks. We've got a head of state launching his own company. Shout out to Robert Sterling. So there was another video I wanted to show as part of this, and then I'm going to read some thoughts that I put yesterday. Here's Matt Gaetz, strong men meet. So Matt Gaetz is very clearly a Trump proxy. So while Trump is firing broadsides, he's also sending a delegation to go meet with him personally. We get one other video here.
The coffee looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Just seeing coffee beans, man, it gets my mouth starts salivating.
Bean of fire, which is makes me think of they're talking about doing powering the Bitcoin mining rigs using like geothermal activity. I wonder if there's a connection there. It's also got the branding has vaguely Tolkien-esque kind of vibe. So here's Matt Gaetz.
I'm Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida, and I serve on our committees in the Congress that deal with the military and our justice system. The people in the United States of America are very grateful for the state of exception And we're grateful that CCOT exists so that these criminals are not harming the people of El Salvador or harming the people of the United States. A lot of the people behind me would have found a way to make their way to the United States and harm Americans. And we are grateful to President Bukele and his administration for establishing security and the state of exception, and for all the good work that the people do here to keep everyone else safe. El Salvador is a country on the rise because people are safe and they are hopeful and they will be prosperous and they will grow great families and great churches and great businesses. And all of that is possible because the people here are not committing the murders and committing the rapes and the robberies and all the things that stop a strong country from standing up and fulfilling its great destiny. Well, in past years, I think the United States Congress has been too willing to lump El Salvador in with Honduras and Guatemala on our policies. And we formed the El Salvador caucus because El Salvador deserves its own respect. It deserves its own relationship directly with the United States that isn't colored by what else is going on in Central America or with your neighbors. We think the good ideas in El Salvador actually have legs and can go to other places and help other people be safe and secure and hopeful and prosperous.
Build a Caesar.
There's a lot more discipline in this prison than we see in a lot of the prisons in the United States. And there are a lot more murderers here. The people here have been doing a lot of killing. And in the United States, you get a mix in prison of people who've done a variety of things. But this is a concentrated effort to solve what was a terrible problem for the people of El Salvador. And so this is the solution. The solution is to separate the killers from the people who want to grow in their life and do more things for their neighbors and for their country.
All right, so if you're weighing the public overtures from Trump to Bukele, you can't strictly focus on just the things that he's saying in his speeches, because this is also a public overture from Trump to Bukele. And anybody who's got an IQ over like 105 will recognize this and understand this. Most of all, you know who will recognize and understand this? Bukele. So here's what I said. I was talking with Jason, the 2-Bit podcast, about this.
Well, John here in the chat says, why does hearing Trump's counter signal, then hearing this, speak to me as actual competence? Trump needs narrative, so his guys go and run cover for him.
Exactly. This is what Jason and I were talking about. So Jason said there's Trump the character and Trump the man to discuss here. Bukele is in the Thiel Vance circle. If we're near the mark, get ready for a lot of good cop, bad cop with Trump and Vance. Trump can officially disavow Bukele while sending Vance over to talk and deal. It's good optical cover if Trump is going to be socially redeemed. The more successful he is at being regarded as the good guy leader by both sides, modeling to both left and right, much like Reagan, then he can also redeem other populist leaders like Bukele and Milei, etc., paving the way for more Build a Caesar needs more successful models. This is my response. I said there's no way Bukele did what he did without extremely powerful friends. Like, stand down the Davos, State Department, White House, BlackRock coalition powerful. What interests exist out there who have, 1, the means, and 2, the motivation to do that? Seems like an exceptionally small list. If it was, say, Russia or China, we'd have been hearing about it like a 5-alarm fire. Can you imagine if, like, Russia or China were the support behind Bukele, allowing him to do what he's doing? Do you think that we wouldn't be hearing about that all the time, constantly? Saudis? Israel? What other nation state would both have that capacity yet also fly under the radar? I genuinely can't think of one. And then the cultural, economic, technological, and political instinctual commonalities point in one very clear direction. It's the tech bros, the PayPal mafia, this entire Silicon Valley dynamic we've been identifying. It seems inescapable to me. I'm open to somebody making a different case to me, but it seems inescapable to me that these are the guys who have had Bukele's back. Notice who isn't saying anything publicly about Trump firing broadsides at Bukele. So if you recognize this, if you agree with me that it seems clear that these were the people who were behind him, then it should stand out that none of them are saying anything about Trump firing broadsides at Bukele. I can't find a single prominent gray tribe or PayPal mafia type person who is obviously publicly Bukele sympathetic who has said anything about it. Same goes for people like Tucker, Massey, and Gates. Not a single, hey, actually Bukele's done good work. Look at how they're thriving. Look how good it is for Bitcoin, yada, yada. I support the president, but he should change his tack, etc.
So this should be an indicator that Max Kaiser doesn't have any power.
Yes, indeed. Either
He's
that,
not in the club.
Either that, or he's playing his role. You know, he's participating in the kayfabe. It's very clear that there's kayfabe going on like a motherfucker all over the place here. So it's possible. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that you have to have your narrative. Your narrative is Trump comes out and he's not Bukele sympathetic or anything. He's going to bring Bukele to heel. If Bukele is a proper client to Trump the patron, then Bukele is going to take it. He's going to sit there. He's going to take it. And then Trump is going to make an overture to him. And then they're going to patch it up. They're going to make peace. And it makes Trump look good. It makes Bukele look good. And now you've got a great relationship formed between them, where Trump is the big dog who started off in opposition to him, and then they hashed things out, and now they're on the same page and they're all good to go. This is the kayfabe. This is the narrative that has to be formed. Don't follow the kayfabe. Don't get sucked into it. Recognize the things flying underneath the surface. It seems extremely obvious that Bukele has Thiel sphere of influence patrons, and the Thiel sphere of influence patrons are enthusiastically coming out en masse for Trump, and Trump is launching mortars at Bukele, and they're silent. To me, all of this points to the Trump versus Bukele stuff being kayfabe. And I said, well, Trump is publicly hitting Bukele. His proxies are hobnobbing with him. Ask yourself why this might be. Okay. So let me see. We've got some Peter Thiel stuff, and then we're going to finish off with some JD Vance stuff. And then the very, very last thing we're going to do is give a shout out to your mortal enemy. So make sure you stick around for that, Cooper.
Oh, we'll see about that. Whenever my wife gets home, I got to go deal with a flat tire. So,
okay. Taylor Brown says, think it's pretty telling that Bukele pulled his punches too. He held his tongue when he has shown he's willing to take shots at other critics previously. That's a good point. Because Bukele, like, even if this isn't something that Bukele and Trump are like, you know, even if it's not something that's been planned ahead of time, you know, Bukele is smart enough to recognize the dynamic here, to recognize what's happening, and to know that he needs to play his role. At the end of the day, Bukele is the president of El Salvador, a tiny little country. Trump is the president of the United States. There's a complete, one of them needs the other one vastly more. Trump does not need Bukele. Now, he can use Bukele. Bukele needs Trump. He needs Trump to be on his side. What Trump is doing is defining publicly what that relationship is going to be. That relationship is not going to be Trump being beholden to Bukele. It's going to be the other way around. So a thread on Peter Thiel. This is Montana Classical College at MT Classical. It says, thread on Peter Thiel. I was talking to my friend at BitPundit, and these thoughts spilled out. Thiel consistently demonstrates Girard's core insight that human beings are fundamentally mimetic and imitative animals. The first example. Play this video here.
I went to the World Economic Forum in Davos the last time in 2013, and one of the, you know, and of course they have the same ideas as the mob, and in some ways it is a mob. It is, and people are there only in their capacity as representatives of corporations or of governments or of NGOs. And it really hit me. There are simply no individuals. There are no individuals in the room. There's nobody there who's representing themselves. And it's this notion of the future I reject. It's this picture of the future where the future will be a world where there are no individuals, there are no people with ideas of their own. There's nobody to say, this is wrong, this doesn't make sense, and I'm going to think differently. I'm going to think for myself.
So continuing here, real quick, I want to highlight a couple things said in the chat. Armchair Contrarian says, and it shines light on the illegal immigration problem to the normies. John says, agree, the narrative of MS-13 in the U.S. is effective with normies. Trump wants to keep using it. It's not useful to go up and say Bukele solved our MS-13 problem. Right. Like, this is so obvious. Minoan says, isn't this what he did with Kim Jong-un? It's exactly what he did with Kim Jong-un. It's exactly what he's done with every major world leader. He hits them hard in public, cuts them down to size, and then goes and meets with them in private and graciously establishes a great relationship. Back to the thread here. So it says, the post above was reposted by Elon. He said, question the blob narrative. Avoid the blob. People have a very hard time being an individual. It is easier to sublimate your mind into a yeasty blob of ideas and imitate them. Actually thinking for yourself is one of the most difficult tasks. Here's the video that BitPundit reposted. Here, Thiel excoriates Google for its failure to reinvest its money into new ideas because they have no new ideas. They're just maintaining things, imitating their past more successful self. So this whole interview here, this whole debate, as it turned out to, it wasn't supposed to be a debate, but it turned into a debate of Peter Thiel absolutely raking Eric Schmidt over the coals. And Eric Schmidt is he is exactly the type of person that the PayPal mafia wants out of the picture. He is the definition of the regime. So we'll watch this video here as Peter Thiel makes Eric Schmidt extremely uncomfortable.
Google's a great company. It has 30,000 people. They have, or 20,000, whatever the numbers. They have pretty safe jobs. On the other hand, Google also has 30, 40, 50 billion in cash. It has no idea how to invest that money in technology effectively. And so it prefers getting 0% interest from Mr. Bernanke. Effectively, the cash sort of gets burned away over time through inflation because there are no ideas that Google has how to spend money.
So they're not employing enough people. So
but you have $50 billion at Google. Why don't you spend it on doing more in tech? Or are you out of ideas? It's not, and I think Google does more than most companies. You're trying to do things with self-driving cars and supposedly with asteroid mining, although maybe that's just part of the propaganda ministry. But you're doing more than Microsoft or Apple or a lot of these other companies. Amazon's the only one, in my mind, of the big tech companies that's actually reinvesting all its money, that has enough of a vision of the future that they're actually able to reinvest all their profits.
They make less profit than Google does.
But if we're living in an accelerating technological world and you have 0% interest rates in the background, you should be able to invest all of your money in things that will return it many times over. And the fact that you're out of ideas, maybe it's a political problem, the government's outlawed things, but it still is a problem.
I'm going to go to the audience very soon, but I want you to have the opportunity to address your policy of investments.
I think I'll just let his state stand.
You don't want to address the cash hoard that you do not have, that your company does not have the creativity to spend, to invest. Excuse me.
What you discover in running these companies is that there are limits that are not cash. And there are limits of recruiting, limits of real estate, limits of regulatory limits, as Peter points out. There are many, many such limits. And anything that we can do to reduce those limits is a good idea.
But then the intellectually honest thing to do would be to say that Google is no longer a technology company. And that it's basically a search engine. The search technology was developed a decade ago. It's a bet that there will be no one else who will come up with a better search technology. So you invest in Google because you're betting against technological innovation in search. And it's like a bank that generates enormous cash flows every year, but you can't issue a dividend because the day you take that $30 billion and send it back to people, you're admitting that you're no longer a technology company. That's why Microsoft can't return its money. That's why all these companies are building up hoards of cash because they don't know what to do with it, but they don't want to admit they're no longer a tech company.
He has got him. He's got him squirming. This was 12 years ago, and this is probably the most aggressive, most publicly aggressive I've ever seen Peter Thiel. He is not a guy to come out and hit things directly on their face like this. This was I would say this was perhaps a public opening salvo that presaged the next decade.
This is 12 years old?
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy how much more high def everything has gotten in a decade.
Uh-huh.
Look at that. This looks like this was like in the 80s.
Yeah, right. A couple other points here on Bukele. Armchair Contrarian says Trump also wants the USA to be the Bitcoin country, which means El Salvador needs to kiss the ring. That's a very good point too. I hadn't actually thought of that line. Ultimately, all of this is about performatively making Bukele kiss the ring publicly, which is necessary for a bunch of different reasons. And if Bukele is smart, which he obviously is, he's going to be very willing to do that. Taylor Brown says Trump is your classic strongman. He demeans anyone and everyone publicly. Why? Because he's always got to be the ultimate tough guy. He's the kingmaker, not the ring kisser. And John says, think of how easy of a win it is now to get into office in January, shut down the border, work together with Bukele on a problem that's already largely solved, and then declare joint victory. Brilliant. You guys are getting it. As many of you know, Thiel's famous interview question is, tell me something that is true that very few people agree with you on. In other words, can you break from the herd? Can you dare, in job interview, to utter a truth you have tried to reach on your own. Obviously, we can't avoid imitation altogether, nor should we. Most education consists in making students imitate certain patterns, but also in making them curious about that which is unfamiliar. The real question is whether or not we can really come into possession of our own minds enough to assess if what we imitate is genuinely good or not. And even more difficult, to break out on a new path, to do something altogether new. Now, of course, traditionalists will rightly have contempt for the last post, but even the most ardent traditionalist has to find new ways to present the inner spiritual core of their tradition to younger generations in light of new circumstances. However this may be, in closing, Thiel's point seems very Platonic. Image of the cave dwellers are just pointing at shadows saying, actually, that shadow is fascist, but you didn't realize it, did you? But is that the right question? Why is that your question? And I think
Google's a great company.
This interview reveals, you should watch the whole thing. Go watch the whole thing. Meta in the chat said the whole thing is very good. It really captures the spirit behind, like, if you want to understand on a deep level what's motivating the Silicon Valley move to back Trump because of the promise of innovation and growth and the ability to eliminate the effect of the Longhouse, DEI, ESG, all of these sorts of things, and what those things signify. Because even here, Peter Thiel understands exactly who Eric Schmidt is and what he represents. Let's say the Epstein version of the regime. He understands exactly what he's dealing with, and he's hitting him at. He's basically drawing him out onto the floor to reveal how fundamentally corrupt and dishonest Google was operating at that time. This seems a little mundane now in 12 years hence, but this is when all of this stuff was percolating. All the stuff that's being revealed now has been building for a long time. And the fact that you have Thiel identifying it at Davos, that you have just a complete inability of people to think any longer. This isn't just an accident. It isn't an accident that people have just gotten absorbed into this blob. This blob was created and drew people into it. And the way you're going to break out of it is by breaking the back of I guess a blob doesn't have a back, but scattering the blob and opening up avenues for unconstrained growth. The constraints have been placed way too heavily. They need to be removed. They see this, Peter talks about this extensively, they see this as an existential crisis. That if we are not free to innovate and grow, and I think part of this is a cover for the revelation of dark technologies, if we're not free and able to do that, the entire human species is going to cave in on itself. So speaking of Peter Thiel and his proxies taking out the regime apparatuses, Chris Brunette here says, J.D. Vance's role in killing the Ford Foundation Fellowship. Now, if you understand the significance of the Ford Foundation, you'll understand the significance of this move. The Ford Foundation is the definition of the regime. It's how the regime operates through NGOs. The Ford Foundation has been a proxy for, 80 years at least. It's been a proxy for the Atlanticist intelligence networks. It's the thing that they use on the surface. It's charity, but it's actually extremely malevolent. So Chris Burnett says, a couple of years ago, I published a dump of internal Ford Foundation emails, and I was invited on Tucker Carlson's show to discuss the scoop. I was too nervous to speak live to 3 million viewers, so I declined, and J.D. Vance stepped in my speaking slot. At the peak of Tucker's show, Vance called for taxing the Ford Foundation's endowment and seizing their assets. The Ford Foundation then promptly shuttered its flagship 40 fellowship program after 60-plus years of continuous operation. So here, watch this interview here, 3 minutes between Tucker and Vance, and get to know your vice president a little better.
The Ford Foundation is just one of many foundations that have enjoy nonprofit status, I would say, and get to completely change the country non-democratically using their tax exemption. How is this going on?
Well, the basic way this works is that the Ford Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Harvard University Endowment, these are fundamentally cancers on American society, but they pretend to be charities, and so they benefit from preferential tax treatment. So AOC talks about taxing the wealthy, but the Harvard University Endowment pays zero tax. The Ford Foundation that funds those radicals pays zero tax. They're not actually going to tax their wealthy friends who are funding radical left-wing ideology. What they're going to do is tax normal Americans and protect their friends, protect their special privileges, so they have the resources to continue to fund what is ultimately the destruction of our country. This ideology is going to destroy our country. It gets special tax privileges from the American taxpayer to do that.
So even Bernie Sanders, who was considered a radical for reordering our economy, et cetera, I don't think he ever called for taxing open.
Just for context, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but this was in 2021. So this is 3 years ago, which it's kind of crazy. Like now, I don't think Bernie Sanders would even come up in conversation on anything. But that's how much things have changed in 3 years.
Partisan nonprofits like this. Have you ever heard any politician say, why are we subsidizing this insanity? These are the richest institutions in America. They don't pay any taxes. Like, why does anyone say that?
No, other than me, I don't know anybody who's talking about it. Of course, the left-wing radicals are not going to talk about it because they care more about identity politics than lifting up the American worker. And these foundations are the ultimate institutions of identity politics. I mean, you think about it, this is crazy, Tucker. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in ill-gotten accumulated wealth. It serves as a tax haven for left-wing billionaires. And what do they do with this? They fund critical race theory. They fund ridiculous racism. They fund teaching 6-year-olds that they should, cast off their gender. We are actively subsidizing the people who are destroying this country, and they call it a charity. It's just ridiculous.
And he's speaking to his base. He's speaking to the issues of the time. He's on Fox talking to Tucker. So he's emphasizing the critical race theory. He's emphasizing the those things, the critical race theory, the LGBTQ stuff, all that sort of thing is actually, that's probably the less malevolent stuff that the Ford Foundation and other NGOs are involved in. Those are the maybe like the open subversion that's happening, but it gets very sinister behind the scenes. See ya, Coup.
Right. So for ordinary people, gas has never been more expensive. Simple pleasures have never been more expensive. The things that normal people need to live. But there's not even a national conversation, not even a hint that we might tax the most powerful foundations in the country. I hope you'll keep this up. When you do, how do people respond?
Look, they like it because they recognize at the end of the day, why are we allowing the companies, the foundations that are destroying this country to receive tax preferences? Why don't we seize the assets of the Ford Foundation, tax their assets, and give it to the people who've had their lives destroyed by their radical open borders agenda? Give it to the people whose lives have been destroyed by the heroin epidemic. Give it to the angel moms who have lost a kid thanks to the Ford Foundation's ideas. This is what conservatives we need to wake up about. The left is completely controlling our society through these institutions. If we don't fight back against them, they're going to make this country not a good place to live.
Amen. Thank you. JD Vance, I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on.
Tucker's face when JD Vance is like, let's go fucking nuclear on these motherfuckers.
And give it to the people who've had their lives destroyed by their radical open borders agenda. Give it to the people whose lives have been...
He's like, oh, because Tucker knows what the fucking Ford Foundation is. JD Vance coming out and saying, let's seize their assets. Let's tax them into oblivion, seize their assets and give it to all of their political enemies. That's a pretty fucking strong statement. And here he is. Now the future vice president. Times are good, folks. Let me see. Was there more to this? No, that was it. Okay. Yeah, nothing else here. All right. So, continuing on the subject of JD Vance, coming up on the 2-hour mark here. This is our last story. We've got an article from Politico. I mentioned at the top of the show that Politico's been posting some very interesting stuff lately. So first of all, this is just epic. This is just absolutely epic. There's no way that Politico is publishing this and putting this image out here as there's no possible way that they've put this much work into creating this thing here, thinking that they're framing him in a poor light. I think something has happened with Politico. I don't know what it is, but this is, I guess maybe the real white pilled take would be that this is how retarded our enemies are. If something hasn't changed with Politico and they think that this is somehow making this is like it's supposed to be a hit piece of art, I hope that our enemies are that retarded. So let's they said if you really want to understand JD Vance's politics, you'll need to crack open a little known work called The Lord of the Rings. See you, Taylor. Thanks for being here, man. How Lord of the Rings shaped JD Vance's politics. A lot of my conservative worldview was influenced by Tolkien. Written by Adam Wren. Let me look at this guy real quick. national political correspondent based in the Midwest. His current coverage focuses on the 2024 presidential race, Republicans, red state Democrats, and the political scene across the country. Before covering the presidential campaign, he covered Mike Pence and Pete Buttigieg for nearly a decade. First began writing for Politico in 2015, became a contributing editor in 2018. He's filed memorable dispatches from around the country, including an early look at Donald Trump's presidential campaign in Iowa and a deep dive on the 2015 HIV outbreak in Scott County, Indiana. His piece, Trump County, USA, was one of the magazine's 12 best Donald Trump stories from 2015. Previously served as a features correspondent at Business Insider and a contributing editor for Indianapolis Monthly Magazine, where he was a finalist for the City and Regional Magazine Association's Writer of the Year. Also written for New York Times and Washington Post. Originally from Ohio, graduated from Indiana Wesleyan. Has a master's from Northwestern University's Medill School, where he won the Harrington Award in magazine journalism. In his free time, he runs marathons, plays soccer, and spends time with his daughter, son, and wife. Pretty normie. All right. When Donald Trump selected J.D. Vance as his running mate, he elevated the first millennial who will appear on a presidential ticket. That makes Vance the first politician who came of age during the Iraq War and the Great Recession, an internet native whose political rise coincided with the development of a new group of conservatives that would become the new right. Let me see this. This is a Politico article about the new right. Okay. But perhaps Vance's most millennial trait is just how geeky he is about the Lord of the Rings. The trilogy of novels has been a long-standing nerd favorite for decades, but it became the center of culture during Vance's high school years thanks to Peter Jackson's movies. Vance himself has pointed to Tolkien's high fantasy epics as a window into understanding his worldview. In an archived episode of the defunct Grounded podcast from 2021 that no longer shows up in podcast feeds, Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, who sat next to Vance in Trump's friends and family box at the convention Tuesday evening, asked Vance to name his favorite author. I would have to say Tolkien, Vance said. I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy, and I think, not realizing it at the time, that a lot of my conservative worldview was influenced by Tolkien growing up. He added of Tolkien's colleague, big fan of C.S. Lewis, really sort of like that era of English writers. I think they were really interesting. They were grappling, in part because of World War II, with just very big problems. In the books, the future of civilization rests on the search and eventual destruction of the One Ring. While Frodo and Gollum jostle over the singular ring, true fans know there's a total of 20 rings of power. Vance is apparently among those ranks, as the venture capital firm he founded in 2019 is named Narya, named after one of those other rings that Gandalf wears. Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel, similarly named his company Palantir after the crystal ball used by Saruman in Lord of the Rings, and Vance has invested in the defense startup Anduril, named after Aragorn's sword. Anduril was founded by Palmer Luckey, the Oculus Rift guy. By the time of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Narya has been entrusted to Gandalf to resist the corrupting influence of evil, preserve the world from decay, and give strength to its wielder, said Tolkien head John Shelton, who, when not engaging in fantasy literature, is policy director for Advancing American Freedom, founded by former Vice President Mike Pence. Gandalf, unlike the other great powers in Lord of the Rings, cared for the hobbits and other lowly people of Middle-earth, and so it is unsurprising that Vance would see himself as a kind of Gandalf, caring for the forgotten people of his hometown, keeping a watchful eye on them against the corrupting effects of the world. It's not too surprising that Lord of the Rings made a strong impression on Vance. The 3 films, released between 2001 and 2003 while he was in high school, grossed $2.9 billion at the box office and earned 28 Academy Award nominations and 17 wins. Luke Burgess, author of a book about René Girard, another of Vance's intellectual heroes, and Catholic University of America professor, said he suspects, quote, Vance's appreciation of Tolkien is not unrelated to his conversion to Catholicism in 2019. Of the many ways that Tolkien's work exemplifies the Catholic imagination, one is the relationship between the visible and the invisible. I think it's fair to say that Vance believes there is real spiritual evil in this world and it can be embodied in rites and rituals. Close quote. At the closed-door speech in September of 2021, Vance said, I believe the devil is real and that he works terrible things in our society. Vance likely took away from Tolkien, quote, an apocalyptic frame of mind, Burgess told me, a final and all-encompassing battle between good and evil. A spokesperson for Vance did not respond to a request for comment for this story. Though he worked on it much of his life, Tolkien wrote the mythology of Middle-earth when he served in the trenches in World War I. After the success of The Hobbit, he began to work on a follow-up story in that same world and wrote much of the Rings novels while his home country Britain was fighting in World War II. The books have a definite anti-war streak. In The Two Towers, the second of the trilogy, Tolkien wrote, quote, War must be, while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all. But I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend. Vance has said his own time in the Marines deployed in Iraq was formative to his isolationist, dovish approach to foreign policy. Quote, I served my country honorably, and I saw when I went to Iraq that I had been lied to, Vance once recounted. I saw that promises of the foreign policy establishment of this country were a complete joke. But his fandom also is in tension with some of Tolkien's ideas about how nation-states should approach the outside world. The books are, in many ways, anti-isolationist. Frodo wants to ignore the ill tidings and stay home, but eventually realizes that the Shire isn't untouched by troubles elsewhere, like, say, NATO being pulled into defending Ukraine from Sauron Putin. Yeah, that's what that is. In the end, Rohan, Gondor, the elves, Ents, and dwarves all must band together and end their petty nationalist squabbles. Their lives are, they realize, interconnected. Vance's love of Lord of the Rings is of a piece with rightward nationalists abroad. At Italy's Giorgia Meloni used to cosplay as a hobbit. Quote, I think that Tolkien could say better than us what conservatives believe in, she has said, though unlike Vance, she has supported aid to Ukraine. Excuse me. Jessica Hooton Wilson, the Fletcher Jones Chair of Great Books at Pepperdine University, has taught Tolkien in her courses and spent time with Vance in 2019 at a conference focused on the Catholic writer Walker Percy. She told me Vance may have internalized the message that America, unlike Frodo, is not called to intervene abroad. Quote, I think this is where Tolkien did not want his work called allegory because he didn't want one way of reading his text, she said. She added, quote, I would also hope that whoever is reading The Lord of the Rings in Walker Percy is willing to learn from it rather than to make it say what they want it to say. Rick Santorum, the former senator and two-time GOP presidential candidate, is a fellow Tolkien-pilled Catholic. Tolkien-pilled. But he has different takeaways from Vance. He recounted to me this week how he has read Tolkien to his children. Quote, I always dreamed I would get interviewed about Lord of the Rings, Santorum told me. I'm a huge Tolkien fan, he continued. I'm also someone who believes that the message of Tolkien is that evil must be confronted. And so the idea is that, well, we can wait until it comes to the Shire, but that's not a very good game plan. You got to go to Mordor. All of this points to intellectual and spiritual tensions Vance still seems to be working out. He's been in office a year and a half. Quote, he's been in office a year and a half. He's never been greatly involved in politics before this, Santorum said. I suspect that this is one of the reasons Trump may have picked him. JD is a smart guy, but is still a work in progress. Those close to Vance say he's been undergoing an awakening since he converted to Catholicism in 2019. Conservative writer Rod Dreher, who Vance invited to his initiation to the faith in 2019 and was present for his first communion, told me that Vance, quote, is thinking broadly about how all must join in the great struggle against darkness. There is no avoiding the struggle. And how God can use the humble and the lowborn to do great things. Think about it. Who would have imagined that sad, scared little Ohio boy living in a wreck of a family would have come through it all and risen to the gates of supreme political power? What might God be doing with him? J.D. Vance might be Frodo of the Hollers, a veritable hillbilly hobbit. A little cringe, but I'll allow it. I like that. A hillbilly hobbit, a Frodo of the Hollers. Take the dwarf pill, short kings. Yeah. We love our short kings, don't we? Tricky Woo says, 40 viewers yet to like the stream. Yes, please. Got 116 watching right now, 77 likes. Do us a favor and hit the like button on your way out because we are wrapping up with one final shout out to Andrew Torba and to Cooper's mortal enemy, Josiah. I haven't seen Josiah in the chat today. Hopefully everything's going well with him. Torba says, he posted this meme. He says, you become what you feed your mind. So you got the angry guy, it's so over. You got the happy guy, we're so back. Josiah says, 1, feedback relay and amplify Hellworld, or 2, order something better. If you feel inclined to be black-pilled, if you feel inclined to it's so over, or to feel doom, realize that you can manifest that, you can ensure that that's the case by creating this feedback relay and amplifying that hell world. When you're black-pilled, when you're leaning into the doom, every time you have an opportunity to maybe have a little hope or believe in someone that you may not trust, and you choose to emphasize the black-pilling aspect of it, you're just increasing the possibilities that that eventuality will actually come about. Or you can maintain a state of relentless optimism and order something better. That's what we're here for. We are here to encourage you guys to order something better and to keep us honest, keep us doing the same thing. Thanks for showing up today, guys. I appreciate all of you. do me a favor and like the stream on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. We'll see if that works. And then join the King Pill Discord. That's the best way you could support this show to make sure we can keep doing this going forward. Make sure I can spend all the time necessary to pull all these stories together and follow all the different narratives going on. So you can go to kingpill.com, join the King Pill Discord. We got a great group of people in there that would love to have you join us and to help us as we build. You will be hearing in the near future about some of the stuff that we're building. I can't wait to tell you guys all about it. Until then, go follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled, and I will see you.